welcome back to my studying. This time to a full review of A Crown of Swords, the seventh book in the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. And let's see what worked and didn't work in this installment. So, quickly, the plot is the Shanshan have returned and they invaded Amadisia and Ebudar. And the girls finally managed to find the ball which will stop the atmospheric wibbly wobbly shenanigans stop, and Matt was helping them with that, but he was alas left behind for dead. Probably not. Then Rand is wounded yet again because he is attacked by Padan Fain, and he is then saved by one of the Ashaman he had with himself. And in regards to Elida, she sent Aes Sedai on a mission to destroy the Black Tower and the Ashaman, but that kind of backfired. She also suspects Black Aja or some kind of conspiracy within her own tower. Then we have a final confrontation between Rand and Samael. And then after that confrontation, Samael is presumably, not confirmed, killed, and Rand is then crowned as the king of Ilion. And that's that. Let's move on to what I expected. Well, first of all, with how the last book ended, I expected more, let's say, immediate effects on the world, at least in regards to the submission of Aes Sedai to Rand, but I guess that always takes time. And I also expected, just on a mechanical level, a much bigger book, because that seemed to be the trend so far. Almost each subsequent book was larger than the previous one. But that didn't happen. This is much more, well, relatively, not much more. It's a relatively shorter book, but very, very plot heavy. Contrast this to what I got. I got a lot of Aiel-centric plot, which, again, I did not expect. And I also got this sort of a reverse situation where the last few books had a lot of narrative, overarching narrative stuff, but they were much more character focused, much more character building focused. And this, on the other hand, was very plot heavy. A lot of plots that overlapped, plots within plots, and so on. What I liked, well, I am going to say this. It takes a special type of writing talent to weave so many plot threads at once without making it a slog. I think that's the biggest fear always, the biggest threat. And the clarity and delivery of vision when Jordan is writing this is what is keeping me engaged. I see that he has something in mind, an end goal. And I also liked mechanically, there is this thing called power creep, right? In pretty much every fantasy book, and even in a bunch of science fiction books, especially if they're epic fantasy, heavy on magic, and long running. Power creep is when you have a character with an established power level, strength, be it magical strength, physical strength, and once that character overcomes an obstacle using that magical or physical strength, you need to keep introducing stronger and stronger obstacles for him in order to keep the plot going. Or at least that's what happens in a bunch of books. That is certainly something that can get out of hand very, very quickly, especially if you already start with a seemingly powerful character as it is. What Jordan did and keeps doing is he is constantly evening out the playing field. And what I'm saying is he's not doing something that, for example, a Superman writer would do. We have this all-powerful being Superman. He can fly, he can punch really hard, he can see through almost anything, he has energy beams in his eyes, he is fighting literal gods. And in order to bring him down a peg, to make it more believable and interesting, writers always either take him out of the fight using contrivances, or they just invent someone who is even more ridiculously powerful. And Jordan doesn't slow down Rand. What he does is he engages into something that I call just evening out the field, right? So we have wise ones. Wise ones are not Aes Sedai, but they are comparable. But however, they don't have many abilities that Aes Sedai do, simply because their disciplines are different. So Jordan has introduced traveling in a limited capacity to the wise ones, which is, even in a limited form, a huge deal. Seeing how the Aiel are notoriously nomadic people who dislike using horses, but they are this formidable fighting people. Just think how much dangerous they could be if they could teleport, even shorter 20-30 mile distances. That's just an instant increase, or a balancing act. Furthermore, we have male channelers, and up until now they couldn't heal. Rand cannot heal, but we have Ashaman, who are just like their female counterparts, the Aes Sedai. Some of them have the talents for healing. Not all of them, but some do, and some of them even save the day, save Rand. And there are also various Terran Reals, various artifacts on both sides that supplement the lack of a specific skill. But they are varied and different enough, and they don't clash. It's not like, oh, Rand can hurl fireballs. Oh, how convenient, I don't know. Samael has found this very specific thing that will help him to do the same. No, it's not that. Well, moving on, things that I didn't care for. 2 points. First of all, it kind of ends abruptly. There's the build-up to it is kind of spent on the build-up with Matt and the bowl and the girls obtaining the bowl. The fighting scene with the golem was spectacular. The description, the pacing, the adrenaline, it was all very well done. And then when we cut back to Rand and his fight with Samael, it kind of ends anticlimactically with his crowning of him being crowned as a king of Ilion. And lastly, I think that some character moments felt out of character. For example, Nynaeve. I know that she's a character that a lot of people in the fandom apparently dislike heavily. I'm not one of them. If anything, I said it numerous times. She's my favorite character. But some things that she does are a little bit of out of character, maybe. I'm not going to say character assassination because that's just ridiculous, but I felt that it did not correlate to her growth so far that we saw, especially within the context of the scenes that these things happen. And let's move on to predictions. 3 predictions I have for this time. So, well, on one hand, I do hope that we get, and I feel that we'll get more Moradin. I get a feeling that the guy who helped Rand was Moradin. Now, who is he? As a Forsaken, we know almost nothing about. Secondly, I think that the mission that Elida put together in order to uncover the conspiracy within her tower, or Black Aja, is going to fail spectacularly. And thirdly, I think that one of the girls will be separated. So far we had either Elaine and Nynaeve traveling a bunch together, Egwene and Nynaeve traveling together. This time, seeing how Nynaeve just got married, I think she will stay with Lan, and maybe Elaine will be crowned, and Egwene will visit her on the moment of her coronation. These are my predictions. And lastly, I think that Moraine will finally reappear, and we will learn what happened to her and how. And finally, my verdict. Considering this is the 7th book in the series, I am not seeing the dreaded, famed slowdown yet. I am, however, seeing a significant shift to a more plot versus character narrative. It works for this book specifically. I just hope it doesn't become a mainstay. I just hope that Jordan doesn't keep introducing new point of view characters, increasing the cast, and the cast is quite large, and it might become too bloated. It's not bloated yet, but I feel like it could if the pace is kept. So overall, I loved it, but with a caveat that I hope that the continued momentum of not this book but the last 2 books is kept. So thank you everyone for watching, and of course thank you Ethan for your support on Patreon. I hope you guys, gals, and everyone else are having a nice time. Please subscribe and like, it helps the channel. I've been doing this for a year now? Yeah, I've been doing this for a year now. It feels weird. And as you see, I started posting a Wheel of Time inspired songs on this channel, and I hope you like them because they're here to stay, and I have a bunch more of ideas for songs, and I'll keep them coming. So thank you, and have a good one. Bye bye.